Do you ever feel underpaid and overworked? Or do you feel that you are good at what you do, but you don't get the rewards that you think you deserve? If that is the case, it is time to rewrite that narrative. Time to rewrite who you are, what you can get, what you can ask for. Hello there, this is Yogi. I'm a career coach helping people live a life of success and harmony. I love to help people figure out what they really want, not what they want next, but what they really want, and then help them make a consistent progress towards their true desire. Today, we are talking about negotiation. In work as well as life, negotiation is not a choice or a luxury. It is a survival skill. Do you ever feel underpaid and overworked? Or do you feel that you are good at what you do, but you don't get the rewards that you think you deserve? If that is the case, it is time to rewrite that narrative. Time to rewrite who you are, what you can get, what you can ask for. And one more thing before we dive into negotiation is that negotiation is not just about tangible results. It is as much about recognizing your true value, your true potential to create value, and then have the confidence to also ask for what you've created, what you worked for, and not get into the self-doubt territory of what will people think of you. With that said, let's dive into negotiations. But before that, why should you listen to me? And that's a very good question. And let's get into the details of what I know about negotiation, how I know about it. Back in the days before I became a career coach, I used to work at Facebook as a research scientist and software engineer. And last time, 5 or 6 years ago, when I was looking for a job, I got a job at a large ride-sharing company. They offered me a good 320K USD of annual compensation. That was good, but I thought I could do better. And I was able to negotiate that up to $1 million. And people think when they hear it that I must be really good at negotiation. But the truth is, I am not good at negotiation. I was not born a good negotiator. So if you're looking for somebody and you want to learn negotiation for somebody who was born a negotiator, I am not that person. But I had to work for it. I have learned to negotiate well. And now that I have learned negotiation well, I have become reasonably good at it. I've also helped many of my clients get multiple six-figure raises. And I believe negotiation is indeed a skill. One can learn it. Many people happen to be not good at it, but that's not the end of the story. That's just the beginning of the story. And how we learn negotiation is through focusing on principles, not the tactics. Tactics are important and we will talk about them, but today it's about principles. Focusing on the principles of negotiation can really help you become better at negotiations. And not just business negotiations, negotiations in family, negotiations with kids, negotiations in a department store. All those negotiations follow similar principles. And one counterintuitive I found by working with hundreds of people on these kinds of things is that once we focus on principles and we focus on the process, we get a lot more than money in the negotiation. Money is nice to have, but people get confidence. People get communication skills. People let go of their fears. And many people who have gotten great negotiation results, they've told the negotiation results are good. They appreciate it. But what has really mattered to them is the internal shift they have made by successfully negotiating. So back to focusing on principles. Before we dive into principles in a different video, today I want to focus on the mistakes that people make in a common negotiation and how these mistakes put them in a weak negotiation position. And once we understand the mistakes we make, we can derive our principles of negotiations from there. So let's dive into the mistakes. So let's focus on the first mistake. The first mistake people make is to focus on the words they speak in the negotiation and not who they are being and what's going on inside of them, how they are feeling when they are negotiating. I'll give an example. A person came to me, they're doing salary negotiation with a company. In the next 2 days, there are very limited ways in which I can help them in the final 1 or 2 days of negotiation. Negotiation is a process where we not only focus on words, but also on deeply changing ourselves, our own impression of ourselves. Generally, negotiations shake us up. They might make us feel greedy, that we are always being misused, variety of different emotions that we bring to negotiation then. when these negotiations or hard conversations shake us up, they make us question ourselves. And these are three ways in which we tend to question ourselves. Number one, am I competent? Am I good at what I do? Am I creating enough value? Number two, am I a good person? And that's a question that can come up especially in money negotiations. Am I greedy in asking for money? Am I a good person? Am I trying to misuse them? And number three is, am I loved? Will people stop liking me if I keep doing this negotiation, if I keep going forward? And if we do not answer these three questions in a way that satisfies us, in a way that calms our mind down, they will keep popping up and they will make it difficult to have a powerful negotiation. Even if you can come up with a perfect script and the perfect words to speak. The basic idea is that we all have needs. And if we don't understand our needs, the need to feel good, the need to feel competent, the need to feel loved, the need to feel a good person, all those things will pop up. They will come out sideways during the process of negotiation, and they can come out in the form of tonality of voice, the confidence that you exude in negotiation, or the doubt you feel, or in a variety of different ways. There are many studies that talk about how majority of our communication is non-verbal, and we can't even control that consciously. Non-verbal communication just happens based on the state of mind we are in, the state of feelings we are in, the state of emotions we are in. And if we just keep focusing on the words, we miss a big part of the communication. And that's the one mistake people make when they are negotiating. Now let's talk about the second mistake. The second mistake people make in negotiation is that they keep playing other people's game and not find what they are good at. For example, in the job negotiation and the salary negotiation, we play the rules of the game that hiring manager or the recruiters have put for us. And people don't even think about it. And you might even be thinking now, how can I not play according to what they ask me to do? And there are multiple ways we can get into how not to play their game. I've helped tens of people actually be very specific about how to play the game you are strong at. But in this video, let's talk about the folly of playing their game. When other people are playing a game, one thing to realize is that people you are negotiating with, for example, a recruiter or a hiring manager, they do it 5 times a day. You most likely do it once every 5 years. So there is a gap in practice here. They have 100 times more practice or 1,000 times more practice than you do. So if we play their game, we will end up doing poorly. It's important to level the playing field so we can have a reasonable chance of negotiating well. For example, one of the clients I was working with, he felt like the recruiter kept calling him and he needed to respond to the recruiter whenever they called him. And that was the game of the recruiter. Another client during conversations of promotion was mentioned to me how he's not able to speak for 30 seconds and compress all his work in 30 seconds to a minute. And he was thinking that he has to play the game. He thought he had to follow exactly the rules of the game that other people have set out for him. For example, speaking for a minute about his contribution for the whole year. You might even think that's not possible to change, but it's very possible to change. For example, many people don't even think that you can choose to not pick up a phone call when you get a phone call. I help many people set up a preparation pipeline where we prepare according to the pipeline and then we don't play the game that other folks are trying to play. We create our own game. We create our own rules and we play by those rules. Of course, those rules have to be consistent and have to interact with what other folks are trying to do. And that's where the fun of co-creating such rules of the game lie. And it's fun to create that for an individual situation that people are struggling with. Another way to say this is that people are always uncomfortable in doing negotiation. They never find ways to become comfortable at least a good chunk of the time. When they can become comfortable and relax and then do negotiation, they're most likely to do well. So become comfortable and don't always remain uncomfortable. I want to speak a little bit about strengths versus weaknesses. We want to play by our strengths. At the same time, we want to have threshold competence in the areas of our weaknesses. Because if we don't even have a threshold amount of competence in our weaknesses, it will really become an impediment in being successful in negotiation or any other aspect of our life and work. But once we have the threshold competence, then we want to create our own playing field. We want to create our own game and we play according to our strengths. And the mistakes people make is that they play according to other people's rules. And that brings us to the third mistake people make in negotiation is to focus only on the money. This we are talking about the job and compensation negotiation. And I've seen people, and earlier myself, used to focus only on the money. They forget that companies or whoever they are negotiating with, they are trying to get a good deal. And by hiring them, they want to get a good deal. And if you just focus on the money, you're only using one lever. The other lever is the value, the skills, the uniqueness you bring to the job. And then many times people say it once and they think other people should understand that. For example, if they've interviewed you and you've been hired, people think, well, they understand my value. That's why they're hiring me. That's true. But once we clear the interviews, it's our job to continue to repeat the value we bring to the table. And the problem is many people don't understand their own value. They doubt themselves. They question themselves. And that questioning and doubt lowers their negotiation position. And I am speaking from experience. There's a time a few years ago when I used to question myself so much. I had gone to a good school, IIT in India, Cornell, did my PhD there. I worked for a very rigorous company, Facebook, and I still kept questioning myself, kept doubting myself. And that really undermined my negotiation abilities. And of course, the value you bring to the table is not set in vacuum. You have to understand what other people's needs are, what the company's needs are. And that brings us to the need to listen to other people. People tend not to listen to other people when they are negotiating. They tend not to listen to other people's needs and what the other people are saying really. People tend to make their own point with more and more power and agitation and not pay attention to what is being said by other people, because there lies our cues on how can we help them, how can we align our skills to what they need. If we don't listen to other people, we will not be able to find mutually beneficial solutions. We'll be left with some cookie cutter solutions, and those cookie cutter solutions usually are very constraining. And the one point I want to make along this line is, why do people focus only on the money? A lot of times people feel very guilty or bad or greedy talking about money, and they want to get over with the negotiation conversation or compensation conversation as soon as possible, and let's talk about the money quickly and be done with it. And that's why they only talk about money and quickly. To really deeply understand what's difficult about talking about money, if we do feel discomfort talking about money, that's when we need to go deeper into emotions. The point number one, where not just focus on the words, but the feelings and emotions the words create inside of us. I used to have trouble talking about money for a long time, and many people I worked with, they also have trouble talking about money in an empowering way. And one of the important things to work on during negotiation process is to help clarify our own perception of money. And if we do have discomfort, how do we become comfortable talking about money? So the mistake number 3 in a nutshell is that people tend to focus only on the money and nothing beyond money. Now, these 3 mistakes we talked about are not the only 3 mistakes, of course, in negotiations. There are other mistakes like lack of preparation. People tend not to prepare well for negotiation, and when they do prepare, they prepare in their area of strength and not in the area of their weakness. Another mistake people tend to make is that they do not engage outside help when they're negotiating. They're struggling in their mind and they think they're struggling a lot by themselves and not seeking help. Another mistake people make in negotiation is they don't repeat negotiations often enough. A lot of time we think, of course, salary negotiations we can do only when changing jobs, but we want to find different ways of repeating the experience of negotiations so we become good at it. Another mistake people make is that they engage in negotiations too late in the process, and by that time they have already put themselves in a weak negotiation position. And of course we can talk about a lot more mistakes, but everybody makes slightly different mistakes, but these 3 mistakes are the one I've seen the most common. Now let's wrap up with a short story about my 1 million negotiation. part of what went well there was the practice. And by practice, I don't mean I did multiple of these negotiations, but I leaned into the spirit of negotiation, and I was able to understand my emotions very well about how I feel when I negotiate around money. One negotiation that I did that played a pivotal role in the 1 million negotiation was negotiating for this crystal. When I first saw this crystal, it was marked at $45, and it was a reasonably good shop. And I negotiated that price of $45 down to $7. And the emotions I went through in that journey was very transformational for me. And also I was aware of the emotions I was going through, as I had done mindfulness for a long time. And I was observing my own feelings, emotions, and sensations in the body. And the lessons I learned in that $45 to $7 negotiation were key in doing this $1 million negotiation successfully. I learned a lot in this negotiation. So when we say we cannot practice negotiation, I think that's not quite accurate. What we need practice with is one thing, negotiation, but also understand what's going on, be aware of other person's response, our own feelings, our own response, our own triggers. And if we are able to understand that well, we can learn to become a better negotiator, even in the high stake situations. And that is all for today. I hope you have fun negotiating. In the next video, we will talk about the principles that we can follow in order to negotiate powerfully. If you have any questions or comments about negotiation, or any mistakes you want to share, or you have seen other people make, I would love to hear in the comments below. And if you want to talk about your negotiation, either you're going through right now or you are about to go in the near future, reach out to me. I would be happy to share some principles and tactics in doing that negotiation successfully. For more content like this, like and subscribe below, and you will be the first one to be notified of the videos I make every week. Until next time, take care.